Hey everybody, my name is Annet Steenbergen. I'm a independent advisor on digital identity wallets and travel, and very excited about the lineup for this panel on seamless travel and biometrics and from ambition to reality. That is what we've been talking about for a few years, but we see more and more reality coming up. So, we have a great panel, as I said, with airports from North America, Europe, and two very well-known providers. So without further ado, I would like to start by first asking everybody to very quickly introduce themselves.
Shall I start?
Yes, please.
So Yann, Guillemain from Amadeus. We are an IT provider for airlines, travel, distribution, hotels, airports, and so on. And I take care of Europe, Middle East, and Africa for the airports.
Thanks. Adam?
Yes, Adam Schipper, Global Vertical Lead for Aviation for Ericsson, which has been doing connectivity for 149 years. Next year will be 150. And we support the aviation community. We don't sell direct, so our only role is to support the initiatives and make sure they have the foundation to do all the use cases that we're talking about today.
Aoife?
I'm Aoife Dowling from Vancouver Airport Authority, locally known as YVR, and I'm the Director of Digital Platform Delivery.
Thank you. Mihai?
Hi, so Mihai Tica, I'm the CIO at Düsseldorf Airport, and thanks for having me, Annet.
Thanks. You're here again. Great to see you again. Maurice, another familiar face.
Well, I hope so. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
We need to make this session great, guys, just before we head out to lunch. Maurice Jenkins, I am the Chief Innovation Officer and Customer Experience Officer for Miami International Airport.
Thank you all. So, again, a great lineup and a topic that is on the minds of every airport, I guess. We see a lot of development in digital identity, biometrics, the infrastructure, the technology is there, but is it keeping pace with the ambitions that the airport have? Because you start introducing some biometrics and your ambitions grow. You see more out there that you can do. Ladies first. Eva.
Yeah, I think the ambition is still there for the airports, and I think the technology can keep up. I think one of the things I think about is the ambition of our passengers, though. I mean, is their ambition where we have our ambitions? And because I'm a product manager by trade, so I bring that product mindset to what are the needs of the passenger, and what are they seeing the value in that? So I think the place we're maybe a little bit behind, rather than the technology and the ambition, is the change management and the value proposition that being understood by the passengers. Airlines understand that biometrics can save them people at the gate. They can save them. Our security understands that can get faster throughput, and so the airport benefits from that, but the passenger is not necessarily at the forefront of that understanding of need. So that's where we're maybe needing to focus.
Okay. So Mihai, do you recognize that?
Obviously, I think from a technology perspective, I am just surprised how ubiquitous that is. I was on holiday in a holiday park with my family, and for the children to get into the playground, they actually had to go through a face recognition. And that was implemented purely by uploading a picture in the app. So from an airport perspective, I think, so it's not a question of technology anymore, it's a question of bringing the players together. In Germany, if we look at airports like Hamburg, Berlin, Munich, then they have use cases that are focused on one specific airline, which isn't where actually we want to go. And we look also at Frankfurt, right, that has successfully implemented a common use platform, but on the other hand, the adoption is not there. And we see from a passenger perspective exactly what you were saying, right, that friction on the point of entry, because it's now very specific, that specific app, that specific platform, right, and the choice of how I set up my profile doesn't really, at the moment, it's not such an interoperability open market, right?
Yeah, I totally understand. Miami International is a very ambitious airport, always has been. So can you meet these ambitions with what's out there?
I look at it in several aspects. One, I believe we can, but primarily you have to look at two facets to me. Is one is going to be about adoption and where are we on the adoption cycle, and also the scalability. So one of the things I've seen, we've worked on doing some biometric deployments, right? So for us, we have one of the largest ones since every gate at Miami is an international departure gate. So it's not concentrated into one concentric terminal. So it becomes a challenge. But now from an integration perspective, if I take each of the individual carriers and we're integrating the solution into their platforms, where's the maturity level between the airport app, whatever the third-party vendor may be, as well as the airline application for integration. So if we can have the ability to adopt and scale, you're always going to have a one-off, but who benefits and who loses from that becomes the fundamental question that you have to ask yourself. The passenger has an expectation, one. Two, we have a fiduciary responsibility and almost a legal right to implement some of these aspects. And then three, we need to actually look at this technology and say, how can this carry us into the future? Because all of us sitting on the stage, being airports as well as providers, are looking at, from a scalability and growth perspective, our industry has grown so much. And I keep saying this, and these are numbers that resonate with me so much, and everybody else sitting in the audience. If we're moving 4 billion people globally today, and that's supposed to double to 8 to 10 in the next 10 to 15 years, how do you do that? Brick and mortar, I could build you another airport, but will that solve the problem? And primarily not, and you have to look at security issues. There are requirements for the new traveling public. Generation Z has to carry 5 devices. So all of these things that we have a responsibility to support, manage, and maintain become an issue more than being a benefit. So now it's how well can you pivot? I think that should be the concern that you need to have.
How well can you pivot? That's a focal point for every airline, every airport, the whole industry. Mm-hmm. Looking at the industry, Adam, as a vendor, what trends do you see? Because you talk to many, many airlines, airports, you service them. So what do you see that can help that pivot?
Yeah, before I dive into that, I want to circle back to the passenger experience and their expectations. I think a proof point for that and data to support that is as follows. So we've seen data that supports that over 75% of the passengers today enjoy a aspect of where they don't have to pull out their identification. And the expectation is, look, I've got this phone, I can put my face, and face recognition gets me into the phone, and then same thing with your computer, and when those things don't work, you get really frustrated. And when you're at an airport, even as a traveler, and you see that you have the aspect of being able to do it digitally as opposed to pulling out your identification, you have such a better experience, especially when it goes well. I think the difference, though, between when you've got face recognition on a phone as opposed to when you're in a terminal is that it's talking to 5 different things in 2 seconds in an airport, because you have to look at security, customs, privacy data. So it's talking to like 5 different streams at once in 2 seconds, whereas with the phone, it's 2 seconds and you're up and running. So I think a key to that is, and this is where we look and we're seeing trends, is making sure that you don't have the network that you had 20 or 30 years ago. You want to make sure that you're looking at the infrastructure and laying the foundation to be able to support and roll out some of these technologies.
Can I add to that? No, just on the back end side, when we look at it from an adoption perspective, and my concern that comes into play, and I had a conversation with some of my colleagues at another event, and I ask it this way. Those of you who have Amazon Prime, raise your hands out there. See, I love all of you. And the problem comes into play right now is this. When we're working on looking at biometric digital identity, and we want to leverage your biometrics to allow you to safely traverse through our airports, you don't want to give me your biometric data just for one flight. However, those of you who have Amazon and Amazon Prime, your blood type, name, date, your credit card information is sitting out there in the World Wide Web, right or wrong? You can say yes. So if you're willing to give me your credit card information and that 3-digit PIN on the back of your card, I promise you I will only use it for good activities. So please line up at the end. But you're willing to do that to a third party, but you won't give it to an airport to help make your journey that much more better. And I think that's some of the challenge that we have to come into play. I like what Ericsson is doing in regards to the technology. We're working on 5G and CBRS to make these efficiencies better and make them available. But the concern that I also have that we have to deal with is the adoption level How well do we work towards we're doing this for your benefit, both now and into the long term? And that's where the scalability piece comes into play.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to make one more point.
We're
to
going to
that, if I
argue.
can.
This is us right here for the next 38
argue.
minutes. I love
just
it.
one more point is that I think a testament to that, and I'm not knocking it, I'm just speaking freely here, is you take a look, in the United States, there's this premium product that you can do called Clear. And you spend a certain amount of money, and then that allows you to go contactless, basically. They have someone that takes you there. Now, since the airport adoption has been going up with the contactless boarding, the membership of Clear has been going down because the experience of the passenger by going just through the basic is not worth paying the premium, which shows that the passenger is demanding it, is comfortable with it, and it's an expectation now.
So now we go to Amadeus, because I want to talk about some practical examples of trials, POCs, that Amadeus has been doing to actually do all this with a digital identity. And I'm thinking the IATA POC, the EU Digital Identity Wallet trial, recently with Lufthansa. Can you elaborate a bit how you see the ambition for the future?
Okay, so thanks, Annet. I still want to say probably how do we see us delivering versus the ambition? I would have to say we are probably not there yet, if I'm honest. But now, a little bit of positivity. I think we are very close to this tipping point. And then we can define it and see why and so on. Adoption, I think, is a key aspect. And when I talk about adoption, I'm talking about the passenger's adoption of a biometric enrollment. We've talked about, Eva has talked about the readiness of the passenger to be using biometrics. Honestly, if you look back 5 years ago, when we started building all of the hype about biometrics, the passenger readiness to share their biometrics was probably twice as less as what it is today. If you look at kind of recent stats, we are in the range of 80% of passengers ready to use biometrics to have a better journey experience in the airport. Honestly, 5 years ago, beginning of the hype, we were probably at 30%, if that. So they are ready, but yet they don't adopt it. So the question of adoption, and on the other side, the equipment of the airport, and here I really see kind of chicken and egg issue, problem, in between the airlines pushing the adoptions and the airports having to invest into the equipment. So that's one aspect. Now, we can talk about quite a few different aspects. Privacy we need to touch on. That's a tough one. Return on investment we need to touch on. You talked a lot about the throughput and the scalability. I think this is something that we've proven. So in the POC and in the concrete examples out there, you can already see incredible scalability enabled biometrics. Paul Griffiths was on stage this morning. If I think about Dubai, in a border control use case, it's just incredible. You have the capacity to clear a complete immigration hall packed to the ceiling in 5 minutes. And this is experience that anyone who's returning to Dubai, registered in their biometrics hub, will experience very easily. A few seconds at the gate, and then hundreds of people in a queue cleared in minutes. So I think the throughput is there. That's an interesting, already in action, it's not a proof of concept, it's in full operation for years. Now, interoperability is probably another aspect that we need to depile. I don't want to, I'm kind of putting stuff on the table, but okay, just quickly. You were asking me about proof of concept, which are being worked on at the moment. Interoperability is by design part of biometrics, because you cannot hope a traveler to be using biometrics in Heathrow and with the same systems goes to Hong Kong and end up in Japan. That's not going to happen. You're going to find different setups, different tech providers in the background. So one of the proof of concept that we are doing at the moment with OneID, which is helping us to standardize all of these biometrics, is exactly that.
It's an IATA standard.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The IATA OneID standard is exactly that. Is a one-to-one biometric matching in Heathrow, the passenger connecting in Hong Kong with a one-to-N biometric matching with a different provider, and then arriving in Japan yet with another provider. This interoperability, we are getting there. And that's the reason, with many other aspects, why I think we are not too far.
Yeah.
Actually, I would expect in a year to already see a few airports and airlines having focused, fair enough, not everybody, but focused operations with biometrics, seamless travel through the airport.
One aspect to create this, because this is a crucial POC, is of course governments providing a digital version of your passport, because we cannot have a digital version that an airline made. It's just not legally viable. So if we talk about scaling and making the right investments to make sure we can scale, and that even though we have a different experience at each airport, we also can have one linking experience in that we can use that same digital identity. So you gave a great example of the IATA POC. How are you preparing? What do you see needs to happen? What do you need as an airport to make sure that your passenger, travels? Maurice, Miami is a big hub. It serves the Caribbean, a lot of different nations. It serves South America, North America, not to speak of the rest of the world. But you want to make sure that they arrive with their digital identity and that they can use it and use the biometrics safely. So how will you, but for that to happen, we need a interoperable version.
Definitely. So for that to occur, and these create some efficiencies, right? We even forget about the scalability aspect portion of it. We need to look at the standards, right? And if we don't have that governance and those standards that we're working with, it's like when we looked at the ACRIS semantic model of just looking at data and data governance. Well, we need some standards across the board and say, hey, this is how we're going to operate and function. As an airport, I cannot do this without an Amadeus, or I can't do it without an Ericsson. I can't do it without 30, 40, 50% of the individuals sitting at this conference of how can we work on creating a level of adoption, because at the end of the day, when you've seen one airport, you've only seen one airport. Our level of uniqueness between YVR, between just Mihai's airport and my airport, are uniquely different because we cater to a different market, right? Our user base is different. Our goals and objectives are different. But if we have those level of standards on how we want to deal with interoperability, you should be able to traverse throughout our ecosystems efficiently as well as safely. That's what we want to do, right? So where the data sits in regards to that trust relationship, I don't really care. I need you to be able to move to my facility. I want to leverage the technology, because what we do, and we have this propensity to do, is take the Amadeus product and only do one thing with it. Why am I not using it for lounge access? Why am I not using it for concessions acquisition? Why am I not using it? Why am I not using CBRS and 5G from Ericsson to be able to run these applications across my ecosystem rather than having multitude? Not having those standards, meaning now I have so many different disparate systems I have to support, manage, and maintain. Well, the three of us have to. How can we work on creating that level of uniformity to support properly this vision that we have, that our ecosystem needs to be tied together in some way? It becomes very difficult to do.
Yeah, Evie.
I was going to add to that. Yeah, it has no benefit to us to be the best at this in the world if you come to our airport and you can't do the same thing in another airport.
Exactly.
But so there's two ways I see this is going, right? There's either going to be some standards, like you said, like from possibly the European Union or some that says, here's the standards and we aggregate towards those. Or just like in EVs, I think in cars, everyone has the EVs, they've all got different plugs, but suddenly like you have one that's starting to be the most popular, the most easy to use, the fastest out there, the infrastructure, and it becomes the standard that way. So I don't think that's settled yet, but that's where I think we're on the cusp of.
Exactly.
I think that's exactly the point. We like to bash on our passengers and the adoption rate, right? But I mean, how many apps and how many biometrics are you going to keep on your phone in order to share with every single airport? And that's in Europe, it makes it even more difficult, right, with all the legislation of GDPR. if we look just as EES, entry-exit system, right, that's being rolled out, that is such a narrow use case in the same time, right? It defines everything, where the biometrics is stored, how it's going to run, but it's such a narrow use case only for the non-European citizens that require a short visa. So in order to really get that ecosystem at interoperability, we somehow need to close these regional differences.
And there, I would like to ask Yann to talk about, because we will get in Europe a European digital identity wallet that can hopefully service all travel use cases and beyond, healthcare, academics, etc. So Yann, you've piloted Amadeus.
Just a real quick one. Just a comment on that is that we're talking about all these different countries and the entries and the numbers being different, but connectivity doesn't get a pass, meaning that we have to be able to support globally no matter where it is and find the connectivity solution to do that. So that's something that is a challenge, but it's an expectation that we have to meet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yann, so tell us about the other pilot.
Okay, so let me step back just for a second, because we're talking, we're talking about adoption of a digital travel token, but also the passengers essentially giving his consent to use that particular token for a particular trip. So on the first part, on the token, where do we see the most traction? We see the most traction in the US, because there you have a governmental database, CBP-TVS, which has created for every entry-exit biometrics tokens, which are used and which can be used for multiple use cases afterwards. In the EU, we are also working, another work in progress proof of concept, we are also working towards this kind of EU identity token that we could be using. India, the same with DigiYatra, etc., etc. The end game is very powerful to have such governmental digital travel credentials, because they bring both the scale and also the credibility of a government behind, which means that not only can you use this token for the seamless part of your journey through the airport, but what we are doing now that we also do the border control in part in Amadeus, the same token is used for your check-in, your backdrop, your pre-security, and your border control crossing. The same one. There is no two enrollment, there is just one. So this is where you start. And let me give you a little bit of a spoiler alert. We are in hotel IT, we're doing cruise IT. We want this token to be used for your hotel check-in, if you want, for your car rental check-in, which is very long. For cruise, we've already started doing this with MSC. So this is really the end game, is to have a credible, scaled digital travel credentials to be used across many different use cases.
Exactly.
Now, maybe we will have still nonetheless private, but at scaled, digital travel token, non-governmental, United credentials, Americans credentials, Star Alliance credentials, etc. But okay, you won't be able to use that at the border crossing, but nonetheless, there is a lot you can already do. And then what I haven't touched is the, okay, now that you have your digital travel token in your phone, and I'm flying tomorrow to Paris, how do I tell TAP that I'm okay to use that credential for my flight? And this is the enrollment part. And here, adoption matters. And what we've seen is that if you ask the passenger to enroll on a kiosk at the airport, for instance, it's clunky. And we reach 10% enrollment. If you ask the passenger to enroll as he does his check-in on the airline app in his sofa the day before, it goes through the roof. So this is also, for me, this is how the chicken and egg in between the airlines and the airports gets cracked very, very soon.
I think so too. But I want to pivot a little bit. Bring AI into the mix. Of course, we have to. So I want to hear your opinion in how AI can help unify the fragmented systems at an airport safely, securely, and how can AI then help support a more seamless experience? Are you working on this? Yes, Aoife.
Yeah, so we're doing, like we talk about partnerships as well. We have some partnerships. YVR is partnering with Schipper to do deep turnaround, so AI at the gates to improve our efficiency there. And then we're working with other airports as well with our digital twin and embedding, like having an integrated experience and then embedding AI in that for forecasting and prediction of flow through the airport. So these kind of partnerships where we're helping each other understand how we can advance in this is certainly something that is very front of mind at the moment. We're also working with our airlines. We've just launched the first in Canada digital, like the biometrics, but working with Air Canada as well in terms of so these partnerships and on using AI is the future for us.
And do you see specific examples or use cases of where it's already supporting, or is still in the process of?
Yes, well, at the moment, the use cases are, predicting flow, seeing the traffic, being able to get that information to our guest experience, and being able to show pinch points and things like that. That's where we're most using at the moment. We've got our deep turnaround is very close to going live in terms of using that AI at the gate and improving our efficiency. And then we've got digital airport, we've got apron control coming, which will allow us to have much more AI capabilities as well in terms of movement of airplanes, increasing our ability for throughput, but also reducing GHG emissions and things like that. So that's where we're going to be improving in the very near future.
Fantastic. I'm sure YVR is not the only airport. Mihai.
Yeah, similar use cases, right? I think AI is in any way pervasive in almost everything, right? So if we look at deep turnaround, we're even looking at taking passenger feedback and using that to predict where we need to clean in the terminal and things like that. But if I go back to your question, right, can AI really change basically the landscape that we have? And that's exactly where we are looking at to say, okay, when we're changing now the future of our airport control center and how that works, and bringing AI on top of that. And AI is really literally just a cherry on top, because the point is we need to feed the data, we need to gather the data from everywhere and then bring AI on top of it. And what AI brings is two main aspects. One is the whole forecasting, right? That I'm giving you an option before that. And the second is the way we interact with our systems, right? Instead of looking at dashboards and graphs and numbers, one thing we're really working on now is to have people ask, right? Really use natural language to interact with the system and get information firsthand.
Great.
My turn. I'm sorry.
Not if you want.
Why not?
I have other questions too. I'm sure you're fully engulfed in AI.
You can tell we have this win-win relationship between she and I. I'll give you 3 examples before we go on to the next question. And looking at it from an end game. So when you look at it from a whole journey perspective. So everything that we've talked about, use case, look at it end-to-end journey, either garage to gate, home to gate, vice versa, and think about it this way. So first things first, I'm putting sensors. We're going through like a $9 billion capital program right now, building a new concourse, just being able to deal with future levels of capacity because we've seen an increase in demand. So if you look at it this way, right now we're looking at doing sensors on all of our conveyances. So with that, we get to track just the operational efficiency of a conveyance, better predictability when I could expect downtime or mean time for failure to get in front of it rather than when it happens. A lot of us would realize you've come off of a 10-hour flight and you have a long walk to get to customs and all of a sudden the escalator is not working and you have to walk. You just had a very bad experience at my airport or everyone else's airport sitting on the stage. That's not how you want to end your journey. So we look at those simple things. Sensors and loading bridges in regards to just operational efficiencies. You hate to land. When I came here and I landed, all of a sudden there were no gates available because the aircraft that was supposed to move hadn't moved yet, couldn't find another gate, so had to wait another 45 minutes. It's not good. Being able to do better predictability, leveraging AI and those operational efficiencies, and with us, sensors leveraging the utilization for loading bridges because there's a mean time to failure for them. But I'll just give you one analogy from a business standpoint because I love money. If those of you that don't, you can disregard this conversation. But I did some sensors in one of my bathrooms just to go ahead and just looked at just operational efficiencies and movement. In 30 days, I need 3 of you to speak up. If not, I will walk down and pick 3 of you. How many people do you think went through one of my bathrooms in 30 days? Just throw out a number.
The last 30 days?
Just say the 30-day period that I used. The young lady in the orange, give me a number, please. Come on. Yes. 15. Okay, wow. Okay, cool. Sir, I love the socks, by the way. $1 million? Not bad. I got 15 to $1 million. So someone give me, yes, sir. How many? 330. Oh, that's my guy from Bermuda. What do you say, boy? All right, 100,000 people went through one bathroom in my airport. So let's take into consideration this. If that bathroom is dirty, will you go buy a coffee? Will you spend any money? So there's a direct correlational impact of being able to examine data and predictability and analysis. The trickle-down effect is, does it impact my revenue? Does it also impact my customer experience and my loyalty to my customer? Jerry, you're talking about loyalty. What does that do to my level of loyalty? So those numbers, based upon flow, I take that to my flight information of incoming aircraft, tie that with that data and say, okay, cleaning crew, you need to be prepared to do this because the operational impact, the financial impact that can occur is X. And what does that X do for me? So those were some of the AI models, proof of concepts that we're working on, that we've actually worked on implementation and seeing results from that. On the air side, we're also looking at aircraft turnaround time, optimization, and some of the vendors that are here at the conference today having some conversation to look at more pilots. We're looking at full efficiency across the entire ecosystem of the airport, which is what we should be doing. So those are just some that I'm working on the top of my head, and there are a lot more to follow.
So some practical issues. Adam, can you relay a bit on what's happening with some airports connecting AI to IoT?
Yeah, just talking about that exact example is Dallas-Fort Worth took it a step further. So they took your use case, right, and they implemented it on all of the bathrooms throughout all of DFW and documented in a full year what the return on investment would be if they took all of those sensors that they were paying a monthly fee and were to take them all and put it on a private cellular network and then roll that out. And after that pilot was done, they made the investment in the private cellular network and put all of those sensors in the bathrooms at DFW Airport today. So that was actually the leading driving use case for the private cellular network was.
And it started with us.
Yeah.
Miami, by the way, not
Miami
Dallas.
started.
There you go. Okay.
And then DFW flushed. But you know, the other, there's additional ones on top of that. But at we have a booth right over there, and one of the use cases is smart cameras, which uses AI. And these cameras now have computers in them that do so much processing. So whatever you need to do at an airport, these cameras are using AI to be able to do it. And basically, in other words, just for that computer vision. Things would be like being able to, when you go on a queue or a line and you see how many people are going to be there before you're next, or from a security standpoint, FOD, foreign object debris on a runway, it's able to detect that. If someone lost luggage, it's able to search the whole airport and find out where that luggage is because it's looking out for all those tags and be able to process that and give you that information in real time. There's built-in AI for really if there's any problem or solution that you're looking to do, these cameras can solve for these solutions. And the other thing that's different is now they're connecting via 5G, which is another aspect of access communications that kind of sets them apart. So more information if you wanted to, they're out there and you can speak to them. But we're seeing more and more airports deploy just that use case in some of the responses that we're seeing out there.
Yeah, we'll see many, many more because with AI, of course, the possibilities are endless and we don't know many of the possibilities yet. I had
one comment, I must say, I quite enjoy the fact that out of all of the examples that you've had of AI use, you can see that we are in an airport operational context because there's been very, very little use case of Gen AI and much more about data optimization, forecasting, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not going to add to the list, but
except
nice
for the
to
toilet, seems somehow we're all putting sensors in the bathrooms. I don't know what the audience thinks of that, but
Well, I was going to say some of the back office operations, like so, using the AI in our finance and our HR systems, and also, our preventative maintenance is a big. So yes, we also like money, Maurice, but we're predicting 10 to 15% reduction in our preventative maintenance budget by just using the AI to say, where we can make those improvements, and so that's tangible results that really immediately.
Yeah, more data. But more data and more sensitive data, if we talk about passenger facilitation, of course, most airports will maybe not have passenger data, but still there is, in all the systems, a lot of sensitive data, biometrics being used, and we've seen hacks again happening at airports. So it is a topic that's not fun, but I want to address it because we can do a lot with data, but if our data gets hacked, the airport shuts down, and the problems are endless. So what do you see? How can we still improve our passenger facilitation, use more data, add AI in the mix, but keep our cybersecurity up there? Who wants to take it?
Okay, I'll kick us off. So you're probably referring to the cyber attack that we've had 2 weeks ago in Europe over 4 main airports. Yep. So another IT provider got hacked, and essentially thousands of workstations at check-in, boarding, etc. were have not been operational for the last 2 weeks. Okay, let me start first by being frank. It hasn't happened to us. But let's all be fair, these things could happen to anyone. No one is free from being hacked. And actually, every cybersecurity expert will tell you that it's more about what you do once your security has been breached than hoping to never get breached. So from a scale of priority, cybersecurity is priority 0 at the very top. I'll just take these examples to maybe highlight one aspect which is interesting. So this particular...
Briefly, because we're running out of time, and I want a quick answer from everybody. Sorry.
So people used to be scared of cloud, in the context of cybersecurity. Well, if anything, that event shows us that local on-premises infrastructure, servers, machines can be hacked. But when they do, not only are they out of office, but also they will remain for weeks out of office. Versus a cloud, a patch can be just done in minutes. Great. So I would say this is an interesting kind of counter perspective.
Yeah, counter perspective. Any other counter perspectives? And
we were not directly impacted.
And uplifting closing words.
Uplifting closing words. Okay. In Europe, we have more regulation, so there's a lot of work for us to do in that aspect. But that's a good point. Yeah, cloud is also the strategy for us. How quickly you can recover has a good thing. The ball is, the pressure also, I throw back the ball to the suppliers because there's a lot of things that you have to be compliant with when delivering systems for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wise words.
I will just urge anyone sitting out there, when it's cyber, I think cyber budgets have increased tremendously across our ecosystems across the board. It's worth the level of spend. FYI, I think 2 years ago before I transitioned into my new role, I went to my director and they're like, I need $1 million for a new firewall. And he's like, are you crazy? Like, where is it going? Can I see it when I come into work? I'm like, no, it'll be in the closet. It's like, you want $1 million to put something in the closet. Well, it's like, either you give me the $1 million or these things could potentially happen. I got the $1 million. But bear in mind several things. If you don't have good contingency planning, one, your back data recovery, the ability to be able to recover. How quickly, as you can say, how quickly can you recover? Because it's bound to happen. Our job is to ensure it doesn't happen. They only have to get it right one time, right? Whether it's inside the threat or external. That becomes the challenge that keeps a lot of us up at night, and that's going to be a continuum that there's nothing you're going to be able, you can't get away from that. How can you be more responsive, and how quickly can you react? And that's how you should be benchmarked.
Keep your passengers happy and their data safe, right, Adam?
Yes, and I would just leave with that it's not just about connectivity, it's about picking the right connectivity for the solution that you're looking to solve for.
Uplifting last words. Thank you very much. Please join me in an applause for this great panel. We could have talked much longer. We could have talked for a whole hour, but this was really, really good. Thank you so much.